We're back in the Toyota GR Yaris, and I couldn't be more excited. I went on the launch of this car 2 months ago and I couldn't believe that it lived up to the hype. Now, for the uninitiated, the GR Yaris isn't just a faster version of a regular Yaris. In fact, it shares very little in common with the Super Mini. And that's because it's been built from the ground up to be a rally special and to give Toyota a competitive edge in the World Rally Championship. Now today we're revisiting the homologation special to see if it really is the best performance car of 2020, and I'll be honest, I've been desperate to drive this car again and I can't wait to get back behind the wheel. So before I get into the review, remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more awesome videos just like this one. Being a rally special, the GR Yaris has its fair share of quirks, and it's those idiosyncrasies that all add up to give this car a competitive edge in rallying. The roofline, for instance, is 10 centimetres lower than it is on a regular Yaris, and it's made of carbon fibre reinforced plastic. It also slopes downwards, and it's designed to feed more air into the rear wing that would be here on the rally car. Now, Tommy Mäkinen, who heads up Toyota's WRC team and was instrumental in the development of this car, wanted to get rid of the rear window altogether and have a more coupe-like design. But Toyota said no. He did, however, get his own way on some other aspects of the car. So if we pop the bonnet, we'll find something that you'll also find on the rally car. Because the GR Yaris has to work both on tarmac rallies and in the forests, it needs to be adapted. And one thing Mäkinen asked Toyota engineers to install are two holes that are covered up on either side of the bonnet. Now, you won't find that on a regular Yaris, and they're there to allow extra room if you install beefier suspension for the likes of the Safari Rally. So if you really wanted to, you could actually convert your regular GR Yaris into a rally version if you've got enough money to spare. But the GR Yaris's development wasn't straightforward at all. And while we're under here, we can talk about this 1.6 litre 3-cylinder petrol engine. Now, this is bespoke to the GR and comes with its own ball-bearing turbocharger. It chucks out 257 brake horsepower to all four wheels. And according to Toyota, they constantly were blowing this thing up on the dyno. It went through so many revisions until we've got this finally very reliable unit that you now have in the car. But it just shows what a racing car this GR Yaris is. It's a proper thoroughbred because it's not based on the same architecture as the regular Yaris. It's its own bespoke platform. In fact, on the exterior, the only carryovers are the headlights, the wing mirrors, and the tail lights. Every other panel is completely new. The GR Yaris is Toyota's first proper stab at a sports car in decades, not including the GR Supra, which was based on the BMW Z4. And yet they decided to call it a Yaris. Why didn't they call it, I don't know, the GR Rally? I remember why they call it a Yaris. And that's because the interior is pretty much identical to that of the standard Super Mini. And that might be quite a tough pill to swallow because you're spending at least £30,000 on a GR Yaris. And if you go for this version, the circuit pack, which comes with 2 Torsen diffs as well as uprated suspension, you're looking at £33,500. Nevertheless, there are some things in here that will make you feel pretty special. The steering wheel is wrapped in leather and has red stitching with a GR badge on it and is just so wonderful to hold. And then there are the sports seats which grip you really nicely. They've got part leather on the side and then you've kind of got this suede effect in the centre. It's not Alcantara, but it still feels suitably sporty. Now, all GR Yarises come with a 6-speed manual gearbox, and while I'll talk about the action later, it's really very good. The overall design is really lovely, and it actually sits a little bit higher than it does on a regular Yaris, and that's to help you out when you're driving fast. Ahead of that is a rather basic looking console, but it doesn't need to be complicated because there are only 3 settings for the differential. In normal mode, the car will send 60% of the power to the front wheels. If you then whack it into sport, it'll then shift 70% to the rear axle. And then in track mode, it's a 50-50 split. And that's pretty fitting because the car was developed 50% on track and 50% off-road. Now the last thing is this little plaque in the center console, and well, plaque is putting it politely, it's basically just a very nice sticker. But it does say GR, and then it's got the WRC logo, and beneath that it says, developed for FIA World Rally Championship. There are some stranger quirks with the GR Yaris on the inside. So, as I mentioned, this is the fully loaded circuit pack, but what's really strange is that it doesn't come with parking sensors, but does come with a rear camera. If you want parking sensors, you have to go for the slightly cheaper comfort pack that also comes with a head-up display. Again, you don't get that on the circuit pack. And Toyota says that you can't mix and match because of the wiring. I don't really understand that. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And the only people you'll be able to get in the back are either shorter people or children because it's properly cramped back there. But to be fair, the GR Yaris is all about driving thrills. So let's go and take it out on the road and see if it's just as good as I remember. I can't tell you how excited I am to be back behind the wheel of the GR Yaris. I've been looking forward to this car for such a long time, and when the opportunity came to be one of the first to drive it a couple of months ago, I leapt at the opportunity, and just like everybody else, I fell in love with it. It was such a remarkable car. But I didn't have a lot of time with the GR Yaris. I only had about 3 hours to play around with it and really get a feel of what the car was like. However, I've spent a lot of time with the GR Yaris now, and it's just confirmed that I wasn't looking back at this car with rose-tinted glasses. It really is a superb hot hatchback. So before I get into the meat of this review, I thought it'd be a good idea to run over things that are maybe a little bit different to how I remembered it when I first drove the car. And the first thing is the steering. I remember when I got in this for the first time, I thought the steering was really good. However, it was a little bit light, and I was kind of left wanting a little bit by the end of the journey. However, when I stepped back into this again 2 months later, I just realized that it's weighted so nicely. It's a little heavier than I was expecting, but it's still light enough to feel agile. This car really does feel as though it's on its toes. And it's really reflected very well in this steering, and I get a really good feedback of what the road surface is doing. The next thing is the sound of the engine. I remember this being a little bit better than it actually is. It's by no means bad at all. I do think it sounds really good, but it just doesn't have that performance car growl that you would expect from something wearing a GR badge. Everything else is just as good as I remembered though. The gear change is sublime. It's so good. It feels like a proper mechanical shift. And you don't need to rev the car out too much to really maximize the power either. I'm finding myself upshifting at about 5,000 RPM, 5.5, whereas the red line is all the way up at 7,000. Oh my goodness, this car is just so good. It's just such an excellent car to drive on a B road. There is nothing that comes close to this on a B road. It is perfection, B road perfection. And that's down to so many different things. We've talked about the steering. It's so nicely weighted, makes the car feel really agile. You've got this beautiful gearbox that first to fourth feels nice and short, so you can really fly through the gears. Fifth and sixth are really good cruising gears, so when you're on a motorway, it can stay nice and smooth. Then there's the all-wheel drive system. This thing is just superb. I'm in a car with the circuit pack equipped, and that comes with dual Torsen diffs as well as a clutch diff in the centre. You'd think with this being a modern car that there'd be loads of electronics nannying you the whole time and managing the power between the front and rear axle, but to be fair, it's all cogs. Everything feels like it's mechanically driven, and therefore you feel like you're on top of it and you're managing it. It's you that is in control of the situation, and that's what we want in a driver's car. So one of the things I like about it is the sensation of having the car slip a little bit, but you never feel like you're out of control. You can let the car just dance around without having that sensation of, I'm going to put this in a ditch or on its roof. You can, however, adjust the characteristics of the car using the diff settings. So there are three settings to choose from. You've got normal, sport and track. Normal distributes the power 60% to the front, 40 to the rear. Sport is quite a peculiar one. It's 30 at the front and 70 at the rear. And track is 50-50. Now I thought they would be split because 50-50 seems a little bit safer, but Toyota insists that that's the best way of getting performance out of the car. It's all about getting grip out of the corners and launching you down to the next bend. So it's 50-50, and you can really notice the difference when you're on the road. So if I were to go and whack it into sport, the tail feels noticeably livelier. And then in track, there's just this sensation of endless grip. I can go into any corner, pin the throttle, and the car finds traction and launches me out of it. On a really good B road now. Oh my goodness. So we recently had a 911 Turbo S in, and to be fair, it did feel, in my opinion, it was too overpowered for public road. I thought it was excellent on a track. It was so much fun to drive, and it felt like a proper track weapon, but on a road, I felt like I couldn't even scratch the surface of its performance. It was just so capable that it was held back by the bumps and tightness of a UK road network. Whereas this thing with 257 brake horsepower, it's just meant for a B road. It is the perfect amount of power. I don't need anything more. I don't need anything more. This is so very good. So I was driving the new Civic Type R on this very road a few weeks ago, and as soon as you floored the throttle, the car would go onto the other side of the road because it was just struggling to find grip. And the Civic Type R is great at finding traction. For a front-wheel drive car with 316 horsepower, it is very good at biting into the tarmac, but on that day it was properly struggling. We're in similar conditions today. Nothing is phasing the GR. And this is what makes the GR such a brilliant car in Britain, because the weather is rubbish a lot of the time. And there are so many days of where you go, I'd love to go and take the car out for a drive today, and you're having to drive it at 4/10 the whole time because you're worried about spinning out or just spinning up the front wheels. But the GR is the kind of car where it can be absolutely hammering with rain, and you can have just as much fun as if it was bone dry. Admittedly, it's very hard to find something I don't like about the GR. It just ticks so many boxes. All right, the interior is a bit rubbish. You'd want something a bit better on a car costing £33,000, but it's a Yaris, and you're spending that money on the engineering, and the engineering is so good. You could spend 100 grand on a car, 200 grand, even 50, and I don't really think you'd find a car that's as good a driving experience as the GR Yaris. You know, 2020 has been a pretty awful year, and not many people are going to look back on it fondly. And I'll be the same, but there will be one thing that will make me smile, and a memory that I will really cherish from this year. And it's driving this car and being able to experience it. Because as a fan of driving, as a fan of rallying, and as a fan of engineering, the GR Yaris just nails everything. What a special car. What a way to end the year.